Welcome to the Bearded Talk podcast, guys. It's your host, Adam Mason. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited. I don't want to waste up any more of your time. Today, we're talking with Evie Rupp, a.k.a. Evelyn Grace Photo, a.k.a. Megan Trainor in Training. That's an inside joke that you'll get at the end of the episode. Or if you've already gone into the show notes, you could see the YouTube video. But anyway, we're talking to Evie Rupp all about being authentic in your business and finding connection with your couples. And also, we're just diving into some Instagram hacks for fun. It's always fun to see what other people do or what are their guidelines. Like, oh, I don't post any black and white photos. So we asked her a little bit about everything, her relationship with the amazing Lindsay Roman, who was a guest on episode 49. Go back and listen to that one as well. And so I'm really excited for this episode. I don't want to take up any more of your time. Without any further ado, here's Evie Rupp. Evie, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing, Adam?
Good. This is super fun. I'm excited just to chat with you. I know we met in the cold, dark New York City. It wasn't that bad actually, but it was really fun. And we were swapping like Christian college stories.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world? Who is this person?
It was great. We were talking about motorcycles and you were trying to encourage me to get one. It was fantastic.
Yes. Yes, please do. Everybody on this podcast is going to DM you and tell you to get one. Like, I don't even care. Or at the very least, just get like a scooter. I could see you rocking a scooter. And, you know, you have your surfboard for the water and then scooter for the land.
I need to get one of those carriers for my surfboard, like on the edge of like my bike or something. And just the beach is literally like 4 blocks away. So.
Oh, that's sick. That's sick. But surfboards are heavy though. Like, unless you have a short board, people don't understand. They're big. Yeah,
they are. I don't have a long board. I have like a medium-sized board. So maybe I can make it work.
Okay, yeah. Or you can just strap it to your head and just practice
exactly.
for a really long time.
That sounds very painless and smooth, and I could definitely do that.
Just walk into Whole Foods and you're just like, hi, I'm here to pick up some PB&J bites.
Casual.
Like, what is happening?
Casual, yeah, definitely my vibe.
I love it. I just want to start off with a fun thing before we get into your story. What is the number one thing that people ask you in your DMs? Not like guys reaching out, just I mean other professional photographers or just people who are inspired by you. I'm always curious, and I wanted to ask you specifically because you mentioned that in a caption recently. Like, what's the number one thing that people are asking you in your DM, advice wise or just career wise?
I honestly feel like that really depends on the day and the week. I get a lot of questions, a lot of them about like how I have my personal walk with the Lord and like how I cultivated that relationship. That's one I've been getting a lot recently. I think the other one is most often like, how do you maintain like a confident, like healthy, personal life, especially sharing that on social media? Like, how are you able to be so confident and show that on social media? And then when it comes to like photography specifically, I get a lot of questions about like, how do you build a real relationship with your clients? How do you pose them or direct them to get like natural reactions? But I feel like that was probably like 4 for you, but I feel like those are like some of the top questions I get almost every day.
Awesome. No. So, yeah, if you can just go through the answers to all those, that'd be great. No, just kidding.
Casual. Give me 30 seconds. I'll be done.
Yeah, exactly. All right, ladies, we're just going to play some music and Evie's just going to go take over the episode. No, that's great. And then the 5th one would just be dudes being like, hey, how's it going? No.
I literally screenshot those and send them to my best friend, Lindsay, because we both just crack up over like the different ways guys try to slide in.
That's hilarious. This is probably the most, we've only chatted for like 15 seconds now, and it's the most dating we've talked about on the podcast ever. But I mean, real life, I mean, that's photographers, like people who are single, they're like, oh, it'd be so much fun to have like a husband-wife team or whatever. And, you know, hey, that's something that every process is going to go through. I mean, Lindsay probably gets pregnancy questions, right?
She does.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, she's that person.
Yep.
And non-pregnant people aren't pregnant. And so they're like, what do you do? I like you. I like your style. Where'd you get your hat? You know, who's your OBGYN? It's just normal stuff.
Very casual.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's the weird thing about Instagram. People will ask anything.
It's so true.
So I love that. I love that you touched on a few different things because it seems like one, that's where like just the Instagram space is, and especially where I think people like you, Lindsay, Jenna Kutcher, Caitlin James, like you guys thrive at, is this balance of like, hey, I'm a business, but I'm also a person, and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds in that. And I think you guys do a really, really good job at that. And I think that's why the DMs kind of reflect both, hey, why are you so confident? Or what does this look like? But then also like, hey, what's your camera setup? So I get that. But before we dive into any of that stuff, I just want to know, kind of confirm some parts of your story. So you're 21, right?
Yes, sir.
Sweet Lord, baby. You're just a little tiny thing. Like, I feel old now that I just turned 30, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a dad. I don't have any kids, but I feel like a dad. And because of my DMs, because people are like, hey, how do I make money? And then, yeah, you're 21, from Ohio, right?
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
All right. That's not something to be proud about. And then, just kidding. And then, what's your kind of story? Did you didn't go to college for photography, I don't believe, or not even at all? And then like, what's filming on the gaps? And then you live in California now, right?
Yeah. So, I was born and raised in Ohio. I was never the person who fell in love with photography. I was not the kid who walked around with a camera and was like, oh, I want to be a photographer. Like, that was just not me. I was definitely very creative. I loved to write. I loved music. I was in theater. I think I see a lot of those things coming out in my brand and my business now, especially like the theater. I love being the center of attention. I loved being on stage. And I will shamelessly say that I am definitely a big like ham when it comes to putting on a show. And I loved to write. I loved telling stories, and I loved making people feel things through my stories. So I think all of those things I see coming out now in what I do, which is so, so cool, but I never saw myself where I am today. I actually was fully planning through all of high school for about 5 years. I fell in love with government and politics, and I was planning to go into political science and economics. I had an internship lined up with a state representative. I traveled the country with a political organization for a couple of years in high school, and then a gap year afterwards. And I really was like passionate about that field and that industry. And I went to ministry school in Northern California. Basically, for me, my reasoning behind it was that I wanted to get like just a foundation under me, even more firmly and more solidly before I came back to Ohio and went straight into politics. So I had like my internship lined up there and everything. And so I went to school in Northern California, fell in love with California, specifically Southern California, when I like made a few trips down. Graduated the program there, moved back to Ohio. And as soon as I got back, I just felt God say to me, like, hey, no, like politics is not what you're supposed to be. And I was just so like, that was such a plot twist for me. Like I had that like planned out for like 5 years. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And at that point I had been shooting. So I picked up a camera when I was about 16. And the reason I picked it up and fell in love was I saw a friend do a shoot. One of my best friend's brothers was a photographer, and he did a shoot with me and like my friends. And I saw the process from like the actual shoot to the post, like him sending us the edited images. And I was like, what the heck? And it so intrigued me. And so I picked up a camera and started shooting, and I realized it was really challenging for me. And I'm the person who, if something's really challenging, I want to master it. Like I hate to be bad at something. Like I just can't be bad at something. So when I picked up my camera and it was hard, I was like, okay, I'm going to like whoop this. And I started like really shooting a ton. So from the time I was 16 until I came back from ministry school, at 19, I was shooting like every day, every week. I was doing, I second shot like 20, 30 weddings a year for like 2 years. So I was shooting a ton. It was just like my passionate side hobby while I was still like pursuing the politics thing. So then when I moved back from California into ministry school, I started, like I had a few weddings booked that year, and I was like, you know what? I have no idea what I want to do with my life, but I do know that I have these weddings in front of me and these clients like in my hands right now. And so I am just going to do this with as much excellence and energy and focus as I can. And then like, I'll figure out what I want to do later. And so I threw myself into my photography, and God was just like, yeah, this is what I have for you. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So it was just so cool because I went into photography. Like, honestly, I feel like God kind of tricked me into it, and he was like, surprise, plot twist. But it was really cool because I'd been practicing and really like perfecting my art when it came to the photography. And so that was all when I came back from ministry school and started pursuing it. That was spring, summer of 2017. So at that point, I really felt like I had perfected, or not perfected, but I'd really honed in on my art side of photography. And so that summer of 2017, I just dove like headfirst into the business side, and really like focused on kicking butt and making a name for myself, and actually going full time with it. So that's a little bit of my backstory.
That's so cool though. I mean, it's, and you're full time now, right? Like,
yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Living in Southern California. Like,
oh yeah, I can tell you that story too. Yeah. So that's like, honestly, I can make that a lot shorter. I was planning to move back to Northern California because it's cheaper, and I had like lived there before, and I have a lot of friends out there. But my heart has always been in Southern California for the last like 3 years. And my business, being a destination wedding photographer, I travel all the time. And a good chunk of my client base is in Southern California and Hawaii. And so I knew that this made a lot of sense for me, and God, like, my business has just taken off so insanely fast. Like, it still blows my mind. I'm still like, what is happening? But God blessed me financially when it comes to the business side of things to actually make this move. I didn't expect to move out here to SoCal, for another like 2 to 3 years, because I wanted to be smart with my money. And then it made so much more sense. This is actually like an investment and a really good place for me to be right now when it comes to my business and community and location. I'm not on the road for long stretches of time anymore because I can come back here to my like central home base. But yeah, I moved out here last week of February. So it's been like a couple months at this point, and I'm loving it so much.
That's really cool. And then are you, just because I feel like I'm like, what do people want to know about Evie? It's just like, are you enjoying it being in SoCal now? And just like, have you kind of settled in? And like, this is the first time you've been, quote unquote, like on your own, paying your like regular life, normal Evie bills, and also running a business. Like, how is that going? Has that been kind of weird? Or like, what's kind of been the biggest struggle where you're like, oh, I didn't know about this? Or like, California's like tax laws are kind of weird.
Let me just say, California is out to steal your money, like without a doubt. It is brutal. I knew I had budgeted it and talked to my parents and my financial planner and my accountant and everything. Like, I had really been very intentional with this move. Ooh, I'm so sorry. I was like trying to be really smart about it. But even still, the first week or two of moving out here, with all the stuff that I had to like purchase and do and like register my new car and like all sorts of different things, like I was so sticker shocked by everything. And I ended up calling my financial planner and talking to him, and I was like, did I make such a stupid mistake? And he was like, no, this is like all investments. Like, you're doing like something really smart. So I think the like financial, even though I was like braced for it, still caught me off guard. But yeah, I've been settling in slowly. It's been a little hard. I only took 2 weeks off for the move. And I started completely from scratch. So I flew out here, bought a car out here, and shipped, like brought 2 suitcases and then shipped like 2 boxes. So for the most part, I have been like starting completely from scratch, like getting everything, furniture, like, kitchen utensils, items, towels, like rugs, everything has been like completely from scratch. So it's been a slow process because I only took 2 weeks off and then went full force, like back into traveling and shooting. So it's like 1 or 2 days a month that I actually like try to set aside and like quiet down on work in order to like focus on setting up my home.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm settling in slowly. After a couple months, I feel like it's really starting to be like home, and it's so perfect. I love it out here.
That's super cool. I love it. I love seeing like the little home updates and like you bought a couch the other night and it just like it was not supposed to happen where you would magically get help, but you got help somehow and it was great. I
asked a random stranger on the street to help me carry it into my house.
Exactly. I mean, if it's daytime-ish, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. Like I always say too, it's like it'd be so much harder if you were in like another country and you're living by yourself and they didn't speak your language and you're just like, couch, move, go in, and you're like, this is not what I'm thinking. No, I love that. That's super cool. That is sweet though. I feel like a lot of people, like that's the dream for people. The first dream is for people to go full time, and it's it can seem so daunting, and at the same time, and then you make that jump and you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to go full time. I'm going to be like in my own house. Like I'm no longer living at school. I'm no longer living with my parents, or I don't even have roommates or whatever. And you're just like, okay, we have this set up, and you're like, wow, this is insane. Actually, as of today, I went full time 4 years ago, and it's like I luckily had some idea, but even then, like you never know the ebbs and flows, and wedding photographers get paid in like feast and famine, so like certain times of the year you're just like, I'm rich, this is so wonderful, and like I'll pay for all the dinner, and then there are other times when you're like, please feed me, but that's real life, and until you finally like get to work it out. And so I love that. People are always fascinated with just like, how did you do it? I want to know just how did you meet Lindsay, and like, what's that kind of story? Or are you guys like theater geeks? Did you meet through like being in Hawaii? How did that happen? Yeah.
So Lindsay and I actually met on Instagram, which is super funny. We started following each other probably, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Neither one of us were like photographers. We both had cameras. We were both tinkering around with them, trying to pretend like we knew what we were doing. We honestly were just taking cool photos of latte art and trying to be hipsters. That's legit, like all our Instagram feeds were. And I don't know how, neither one of us remembers how we met, how we started following each other, but we did. We really connected on Instagram, just one of those like Insta BFF type of things. And then when I was in school in Northern California, she and her husband, Andrew, were in Northern California for Andrew's Coast Guard training. And Lindsay, I saw that she was on in NorCal, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to meet up. So we drove out to the California coast, met up there, exchanged photo shoots, and literally like in that moment, meeting each other, we were like, okay, yep, hands down, like we're going to be soul sisters, like best friends until we're old and gray. And it was super funny because she called me Evie during the entire photo shoot. We did a shoot with me and my boyfriend at the time, and the entire shoot, she called me Evie, and I didn't correct her. And then I think like 2 weeks or 2 months later, she says it's 2 months, I say it's 2 weeks. Later though, she like called me or something, and we were talking on the phone, and she said Evie, and I like gently was like, it's Evie. And she was like, what? And she freaked out. But despite her mispronouncing my name, we knew that we were going to be best friends. And we just clicked and connected so well at that point.
That's awesome. That's really funny. I feel like it'd be pretty easy It'd be pretty easy when people see your name, if they don't know that it's like Evelyn, if they're just like, oh yeah, it's Evie or something. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone calls me Evie all the time. I used to hate it so much. And now I'm just super used to it, and I respond to both, but Evie is definitely my name and definitely what I would prefer, but I respond to both.
I love it. Is there, so kind of getting serious again, what do you think when people see your Instagram and they ask you a DM about just how you're pursuing self-confidence and how you show that? One, I'm always curious of like, I don't know if that's necessarily like what it is showing. I mean, it takes confidence for you to show it, but I think for a lot of people, eventually it just something clicks and you're like, oh, I can show photos of me and people love me and people will respond. And those aren't the reasons to do it, but it's like, those are no longer the reasons to fear putting yourself up and having fun. And I think the second most asked questions that people ask you is like, how do you connect to your couples, comes from whatever the answer to the first question is. So like, just talk to me about just like, how is it easier for you? I know it's big for your faith, but just to post yourself online, and then have there been any struggles or challenges with that? And then, what should other people, whether faith-based or not, like consider when they're trying to just share who they are online, and they're not necessarily like, rhino face photography, they're like their person photography, whatever they are. And so what do you think about that?
First of all, rhino face photography.
Yeah, super original.
I appreciate that a lot.
Trademark, Erwin McManus, thank you. No, I was kidding.
I'm here for it. Yeah, I honestly think when it comes to like being genuine on social media, one of my good friends, Jordan Dooley, actually just had a podcast episode about that. And she was talking about like the difference between hashtag authentic and like people trying to like be authentic on their social media because, it works well and like people are all into the authentic these days versus the people that are actually just being themselves. And I think one thing that's really key with that is understanding, like, I don't ever overanalyze what I'm posting or what I'm saying. I am just genuinely sharing my life, things that I find really funny, things that I'm like learning and growing in, my experiences, my stories, setting up and, decorating my house, or I'm learning how to say no to things and take breaks and really try to find a balance and like some rest. And, I'm sharing the real life. And I don't ever sit there and think, oh my gosh, is this going to be hashtag authentic? Is this going to do well on social media? And I think a lot of people get in their heads and they're afraid, like the fear is the biggest thing that's holding them back from actually being authentic and sharing themselves and putting themselves out there. They're scared that people are going to judge them, that they're going to think less of them, that they're not going to accept them, that they're not going to approve, that they're not good enough, that they, shouldn't be doing that. Like whatever, there are all these like fears going through people's heads. And I think that's the biggest thing that you have to overcome as a photographer, as a creative business owner, as someone with a social media account where you're trying to connect with past, present, and future clients, whether those are photography clients or just social media clients and, fan base or audience. I think getting out of your own way, getting out of your own head, stopping, like refusing to allow a thought of like, oh my gosh, will someone think this about me? And thinking, would I send this to my best friend? Would I, crack up about this and share this with the person who's closest to me, whether that's your husband or, your significant other or your family or your best friend. If it's something that you would like authentically, genuinely do with a best friend, then in my opinion, that deserves to be on your social media for your audience to enjoy and connect with. And I think that's the biggest thing and my biggest focus when it comes to social media is I'm trying to build connection with people and have it be actually genuine, 100% me connecting with them. And obviously I can only do that to a certain extent when it comes to like social media and it being an online platform, but doing Instagram lives and, talking to people in live mode and then answering all of my DMs. That's one of my biggest things that I try to do, answering all of my comments, actually building relationship. That's my goal. I'm not trying to have, a fan following or people who are obsessed with me. I'm not just trying to get more numbers on Instagram. I really don't care about the numbers. I care about the community and I care about having people genuinely walk away encouraged, empowered, built up. That's my goal with my social media. And so everything that I do, I try to hold up to that goal and say, is this going to actually reach that goal? Is this going to get me from point A to point B? Is this going to connect with people? Is this going to relate with people? Is this going to encourage people? Is this going to empower people? And sometimes that means, showing that I am not wearing makeup and not wearing pants, just a really long baggy t-shirt that I stole from my dad, while I'm sitting here in my living room at 4:00, not having eaten all day and being like, oops, my life. And sometimes that means, sharing something really exciting that happened in my life that looks really cool and epic and was really fun because I love bringing people along on that journey. But whatever it is, those are my goals. And that's what I try to do when it comes to like what I'm posting and why.
Does
that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. I always like knowing too, I think that's a good answer for people who are curious. And I think I always say that I'll use like a big brand as an example, like Starbucks. And when people are talking about like imposter syndrome and fear and stuff like that, and I'm just like, guys, I don't think Starbucks cares that much. At least what a certain person will think of, them releasing a new product or them being excited about, the new cup or the new gift cards or whatever. And I don't think you should be either if that's part of your business and part of like what you're trying to push. And it is hard. Like, it's super difficult. I know for me in my journey, when I first started, I kind of hid behind, like the last name photography kind of vibe and was like, oh, that's the brand. We'll never share anything about Adam. We'll only just share, things like as if we were like a brick and mortar business. And that was fine. And then what I was finding is like, at least for me, and I feel like there are people who are just better at like, hey, let's have we'll call it a regular business, but like a business that is like that. But I think for those who are personalities are an asset or is just big and does come out on wedding day or comes out on shoots or comes out in life, you can use that and embrace that. And it's kind of weird to hide that. And what I found is like for me at my journey over the past few years is like, I've kind of flipped it. And it's like my bride last night for our engagement session, I never met the couple. She was like, you look exactly like the photos on your website. And I was like, that's great. I was like, that's awesome.
I think something a lot of people don't understand, but that I teach all of my students, that I talk about, that I firmly believe in, is connection is one of the number one driving forces in today's day and age. It's why like social media is so pervasive and like so prevalent in our culture today. It's why TV shows have like, cult fan followings. It's why, there's all sorts of immediate connections where people want to feel like they belong. They want to feel something. They want to feel like they relate. They want to connect with other people and feel understood and feel like they belong somewhere. And with our social media and with our businesses, if we're approaching it as a robot, like a professional robot, we're literally losing that entire connection point with our clients that is literally going to set you head and shoulders above any other photographer out there, any other business owner out there, because you are the only you. Adam, you are very different than I am. Like, we're very different people, even though we have similar interests or, somewhat similar personalities. We are very different people, and our brands will reflect that. It'll instantly make us different and make us stand out. And even with, Lindsay, my best friend, we are very similar. We have very similar brands. And yet neither one of us, we don't have any competition between us. There's no like struggle of, client, like fighting over clients or anything. There are clients who want Lindsay and there are clients who want me. And we laugh. Occasionally we'll get like a crossover client who inquires with both of us, but for the most part, that's pretty rare. And it's just, putting yourself into your business is going to create that connection with people that is going to instantly build an actual relationship with them, whether they need your service or not. And that is one of my biggest goals, is to create a connection with people, whether they need my service now or ever, because that is going to set me completely apart from anyone else in my industry, anyone else in my field. And even if that person who's following me on Instagram and loves my, dance stories or whatever, never needs a photographer, when her best friend or her sister gets engaged, I can guarantee you, if she feels like she can, like, has connected with me and knows me and is in relationship with me and loves me, she's going to refer me with like the highest praises to everyone that she knows who needs a photographer. So that's not necessarily my goal, but that is hands down like a bonus to creating a personable brand and creating a place of connection with people, because that's one of the biggest tools that we can utilize in our brands and businesses today.
No, absolutely. I think, it's like, one, you want to create connection, but two, also, and this is like traditional like business. If anybody's ever taken a business class, this is normal, but a lot of us haven't taken those classes, and it's like being top of mind too. It's kind of like you said, and even though the person following you might not want to hire you or need to hire you, it's like she showed it to her friend and she's like, look at this goofy weirdo named Evie. And your friend is like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, she's a photographer. That's neat. Oh, sweet. And then she gets engaged and she's like, who is that crazy weird girl? And it just happens. And then like the thing too is I think, and I want to ask you this, I'm kind of testing this out as I was thinking about the episode today. So you lived in Ohio until you were like 18, right? Until you were like an adult essentially. Okay. So is there like a favorite restaurant out there that you love, or even in SoCal? You don't have to name it. I just want you to know that you have one.
Yes.
Okay. So if I was going to either where you're from or SoCal and I was like, hey, where should I eat? Like, what's your favorite place? Like, you would be like, listen, this is my jam. Like, this is the place that, if you love XYZ, whatever, it's deep dish pizza or Italian or whatever, you're like, this is my jam, right?
Yes.
Right. So I believe that there are certain entrepreneurs who are the kind of types that are like my wife always makes fun of me, and this might be because my family's from New York City or whatever, and then Chicago, and we're like, we have a guy for everything, and like loyalty is a big deal. And I think that's the real deal though, is like, when couples, at least in the DC area, they're like, listen, I don't want really traditional. I want to do traditions that are us. I want to start new ones. Our wedding can be ourselves. It can be weird. It can be quirky. And I want us to have a really big party at the end. And I want a photographer that reflects that. They're like, Adam is the guy. Like, Adam is the no BS, colorful photos for colorful people photographer. Like, let's do this. And I think that too, and even just our generation, like millennials, which I'm not even sure if you count as a millennial.
I think I do. I think I'm right on the edge.
Just right in it. Yeah, you got roped in. And so it's like, do you kind of get what I'm saying? So
yes.
I think there is that person. And I think too, a lot of our fear is like, you have something like 12,000 or 13,000 followers on Instagram right now, but you don't need 13,000 clients. Like, business would be very different if you had 13,000 clients. It's like you need whatever number it is approachable for you per year. And like for some people that's 15, for some people that's 25, for some people that's 70. But even so, it's like when it comes to like the bridge between our social media and like who we are and what we want to do in business, like a lot of people are just so scared and they're just like, oh, I'm not getting the traction. And I don't know, I feel like, and this is like people are watching whether you know or not, and whether they like or comment. And I've always heard this phrase thrown around in the circles that I'm sure you've probably heard this before, is like, people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And like you wanting to push connection and authenticity, and just like, I think for people who run personality-based brands, if a client feels like they already know you by the time they call you or book you or whatever, like that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Like, because they feel more comfortable around you because they feel like they know you. They're like, listen, I know you. And you're kind of like trying to change that a little bit. And you're like, all right, I'm trying to get to know you guys. And it goes so much better. And I think we've talked a lot about this, but getting to that, how do you have an authentic relationship with your couples and make them do XYZ or make the images look the certain way? Well, it goes back to what we just talked about, right? Like that's, and I think that's how I wanted to connect that for everybody. Cause like people think it's just telling your couples, like, think about when you were in love and think about the first time that he farted in front of you and it was okay. And it's like, that's not necessarily the goal. It's like, they already knew Evie. So Evie could tell them to do anything and make it happen. And it does take practice, right? Not everybody is a model, but I don't know. I feel like people don't get that all the time. And now hopefully we've connected something for them.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see photographers making, and I definitely made when I was first starting out, was assuming that all of the work to actually make my clients comfortable and like natural and relaxed happened on the shoot. And that is absolutely not true. I would say about 80 to 90% of my work to make them relaxed, comfortable, and like excited happens before I ever even meet them in person. And the remaining like 10-20% happens on the shoot, because for the most part, building that relationship and that connection, reassuring those fears and setting expectations, those are my 2 goals when it comes to communicating with my clients through everything. Social media, website, email communication, like everything. Comes down to, I want to reassure any fears that they have. I want to set the expectation of what it's going to be like to work with me, and what they're going to get out of it and why they need me. So those are my 2 goals when it comes to everything. And all of that work happens before I ever even pull my camera out of my bag. So my clients, by the time I start shooting, are literally already 98% relaxed, comfortable, and hyped. They are ready to freaking go. And then the remaining 2% just loosens them up. That's when I'm actually directing them on the shoot and allowing them to just settle into the vibe and the rhythm of the whole session and everything. But for the most part, everything is done ahead of time. And I think a lot of photographers don't realize that. And they skimp on the client communication, they skimp on the branding, they skimp on their website copy. And they're really you're missing everything when it comes to creating that connection with your clients, and therefore getting those genuine relationships and those actually capturing the emotions and the connection that your clients have. Because that's on you as the photographer to pull that out of them, and to actually capture that and to make it a safe place for them to really be themselves.
No, totally. I love that. It's one of the things too, is those couples, by the time they get to a shoot or the wedding day, hopefully when they book you based off the work they've seen and, like you said, the copy and everything, hopefully it's what you've wanted to show. I feel like a lot of photographers get frustrated with bad clients or whatever. Yeah, the client wanted me to do this. And it's well, have you communicated to them that you don't need that, or that that's not your style? If you're not a big fan of shooting tons of wedding party portraits, then why is your full Instagram all these pretty wedding party portraits? And I think sometimes too, as photographers, we're oh, this is pretty, I want to post this. And then, we hate ourselves later because you're oh, why did I do this?
Share what you want to shoot.
Yeah,
that's my motto.
Yeah, exactly. I always too, if I share something that I'm all right, this is just a pretty photo, I don't normally care about this, I'll even mention it kind of like a jerk in the caption. I'll be listen, y'all, we don't normally share this here. This is not really our vibe, but for this person, we felt it was special. I just posted this, I shot a proposal, which I haven't shot since 2013, because we normally don't do them. But this one felt why not? And I did it on Sunday, and we shot a posed photo that the bride came up with of her flipping me off with her new ring finger. And I would never normally post that, and that's not my vibe. But at the same time, the authenticity from them I was really into, and they were kind of they wanted to be not cheesy about it, but they wanted to be kind of I don't know, tough with it. And I was all right, yes. I like this. I was all right. And I ended up posting. I was oh, it was really funny and it was cool. And this couple just got engaged. They're excited. And it was really funny. But I would never normally share something like that. Which that leads me to something else, is I want to ask you, just because people want to know, especially for Instagram, I feel people always want to know, is there any guidelines that you even have just personally for what you'll post on Instagram? And not necessarily content because I know you guys have beach life, right? So there's always different outfits, and it's not necessarily about that, but do you have kind of a strategy? Don't share your whole strategy, but I always like hearing do you doing a light image and a dark image, or what are you thinking when you're trying to post content? Or then do you post every day? What's your kind of vibe around Instagram?
Yeah. So I have a lot when it comes to Instagram, so I'll try to shut myself up and just share a few things.
No, share everything. Give us the hacks. Okay. We want it all, Evie. We want it all. Just kidding.
You said don't share my entire strategy, so I'm trying not to.
Listen, I mean, I meant that in a nice way. Hey, when you're hey, do you want to bite? And you're no, I'm fine. And then you're no, you really do want to bite? Yeah, share everything. Because if you don't share everything, we're going to get DMs and they're going to wonder why. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever you want to do.
Well, I'm just going to give a brief overview of a bunch of my, maybe not all, but a bunch of my tips. I use a feed planning app. I personally use Unum. It's UNUM. That's what I use to plan out my feed and my grid and see what everything's going to look like side by side. So I plan my feed out in advance, which I feel is super helpful. rather than just randomly posting a photo and trying to like hope that it looks good beside the other one or whatever, I try to be very intentional.
Is that independent of the caption? So you might say, hey, we're going to post this as our visual first. And if it's like a photo of you, then you're like, all right, I can at least post a personal caption, or like you're doing strictly visual first.
Yeah. So I go off of visual first, and then I base my captions off of what I'm posting. So that I plan out what my feed's going to look like. And then I typically plan out what my captions are going to say. And in the app on them, you can put your like captions in like, it's a whole app. It's like, you can plan out your feed, and then you can type up your captions, and then you can save your captions, and then you can post directly from them. And it'll take you straight over to Instagram. But there are other apps out there too. I know there's like Planoly or Planoly. I never know how to pronounce it. And like
Planoli.
I literally never know how to pronounce it. And I've been teaching Instagram courses for like over a year, and I always just say both pronunciations. But yeah, there are other apps out there that you can like utilize as well. But I personally use them and I love it. So I just drag, and like you can drag things around and shift things around. I typically upload anywhere from like 5 to, 10 images that I want to be posting in the next like week or so. And I just drag them around and I see what looks good. And my typical rule of thumb is I try to vary my lights and my darks. So I try to have some like darker images like surrounded by lighter images. So it's not just like a clump of light images and then a clump of dark. I try to really balance those out. Typically I do like 2 to 3 light images and then a darker image. That's what I personally do, but I know everyone does something different and it works differently for everyone. I also try to vary my focal length. So having like, a close-up shot of a couple, and then a really far away shot, and then a medium shot, and then, like a mid shot of me. And then like, I try to diversify the focal length. So it's not just like 4 close-ups in a row, and then, 3 like far, like landscape type of shots in a row. 'Cause that'll also help balance the eye and make it, like visually appealing to people. 'Cause your Instagram grid is your virtual storefront basically. And if it's not appealing upon first glance to people, they're going to just swipe and go away. They're not even going to stay to read those captions. They're not going to stay to like see more of your work. They're not going to stay to watch that story and get to know you and build that connection and trust with you. If they don't like it on first glance. So I think the Instagram grid, as much as we might hate to say it, is actually kind of important to like curate that. So focal lengths, like varying lights and darks, and then busy and non-busy images, that kind of goes along with like the darks and the lights. But if I post a photo in the woods where there's like a lot of trees going on, I'm not going to post a photo that's equally as busy in the next slide. I'm going to try to put something that's more of like, maybe it's just a beach photo or something that's like quieter. There's not as much going on in the image. That's going to also help people be able to breathe when they're looking at the feed. And then posting myself in there, that just comes back to personal branding again. But I try to have myself at least once in every grid of 9. That's like a minimum for me. If it's
we know it's a minimum.
Let's be real. Where?
We're just calling it out right now.
That's my bottom line minimum. But if anyone follows me, they know that there are times, like currently, I think I have like 4 photos of myself in a row. So
under promise and over deliver. There you go. You're just like, I promise I'll post 1, but you're getting 4.
There you go. So yeah, I try to put myself in there too, and my personal life as well, just so that people are getting to know me and not just my art and my work.
I love that. Last kind of deep question, and then this might spawn even more. And I think we kind of talked about a little bit of the answer, but I wanted to know if this is something you noticed. So it seems like, and this is a good example when we went to workshop, and that whole workshop was great. I feel like the speaker lineup was really diverse and really cool. Just all kinds of topics, and they brought in a lot of different people, right? Like they have Ryan Brenizer, who he started shooting wedding photography when you were single digits years old. Yeah. Right. And he's the man, and Susan Stripling as well. And like the Hustle and Flow folks and Andre, all those guys. And then they brought you and Lindsay and Chelsea Michael, and all the other people. And so Lindsay just texted me. And so I, just want to ask, I want to try and stay on track. It felt like when we were going through registration, and this is just something I try to notice, and I think photographers notice, kind of, we read people for a living, or at least we try to, and the better you are at it, like the better your business is. There were a lot of women in the industry, and it's great and it's awesome. And I know as a guy, it seems like, really, because I know so many ladies are like, this feels like a dude's club. And I feel like that's changing, especially for the wedding industry. But my main thing is, we talked about being your authentic self, but what is the biggest challenge being a woman in the industry so far, if you've had any? And even also too, like, have you had any pushback being really young, being 20, 21? Again, it's like, I think there's space and enough bread and enough whatever for everybody to have a slice, because it's their slice. But I'm just curious, like, what have you experienced, if anything? And then also too, like, I only reference workshop. You're like, how's this connected? I reference workshop because, like, in a row, like 10 girls walked in and they were all wearing the same hat. And you know what hat I'm talking about, because it's just the hat. And I support it, and I think it looks cute. And I think more people should wear hats, because I feel like only old ladies on Sundays at church used to wear hats. And now we could promote hats the other 6 days of the week, and it's great. And it's great to block the sun. But at the same time, I saw this pattern and I was like, what's happening here? So just curious, like, I blabbed a little bit, but hopefully you can understand, like, what has been your biggest challenge personally, and then, like, how can we encourage people to find that individualism for themselves, if you will?
Yeah. I think I heard two questions that I'm kind of like cover. And the first one was, have I had any pushback being a female in this industry? And I would actually say no. Personally, I haven't experienced any. I have had an incredibly supportive, like, family. My family is so freaking supportive of what I do and who I am. And I'm so thankful for that. Like, growing up, my dad, both of my parents, but I think this is especially important coming from, like, your dad. He would sit down with me and be like, you can do whatever the heck you want. Like, you could do anything in your life. If you want to be a doctor, you could be a kick-ass doctor. If you wanted to be a lawyer, like, you would crush it. If you wanted to be, like, he literally just, like, anything that I wanted to do, my parents have supported, like, my dreams through everything. So I'm so thankful for that, because I haven't felt any, like, resistance or run into any roadblocks being a woman. And then when it comes to my age, I was so intimidated to share my age for the longest time, because I was 19 traveling the country, shooting weddings and, like, couples. And I launched my first workshop when I had, like, pretty much just turned 20. I was planning it when I was still 19. I was young. I was very, very young. I still am, but, like, I did not want people to know how young I was, because I thought that they were going to, like, disqualify me or think that I wasn't good enough. And then I slowly got over myself and I was like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I think there are a lot of young people out there who would really, like, benefit hearing my story. Because most people think I'm, like, 25. People are always so shocked. Now that I've talked about it more on my Instagram, I think, like, people are more aware of how young I am. But for the most part, like, people meet me or, like, follow me or something and don't know how old I am. And they just, like, it's instantly between, like, 23 and 26 is what they guess I am. And so when people find out, like, I'm a lot younger, I think it's been really cool to see the, like, positive reaction of, like, my clients. I think when I first announced it on my social media, my clients came, like, I had multiple texts and like, messages from my clients who were like, girl, I had no idea that you were that young. And, like, I never kept it a secret from my clients. I just didn't publicly, like, announce it. I would never lie, never, like, I was not trying to hide anything. I was just not publicly pronouncing it. But my clients, like, multiple of them, like, either commented on the, like, public, like, post or sent me a message or something. And we're like, just want you to know, like, you are the, like, most, like, mature, professional, like, incredible person. Like, I want to be you when I grow up, like, type of thing. Like, so sweet. So I was, like, not totally sure when I pressed post to that, like, Instagram post. I was not sure what reaction I was going to get. And I've gotten a few people being like, what are you doing? Like, especially with what I'm doing with like the Heart University and like my online course and my workshop and things like that, with people being like, you're 21 and you're like doing all of this education and business training and like teaching and coaching. I've gotten a little bit of resistance with that, but honestly, I don't think your age matters at all. I think your capabilities and like your dreams and your passions like is not determined by the number next to your name, whether that's your Instagram followers or your age. I knew that I like was passionate about educating and empowering people and teaching and giving what I knew. And I knew that I was able to give something and offer something. And so I went into education, not because I thought I was old enough, because I, was the best photographer out there, but because I knew I had something to offer. So I think when it comes to like anything, whether that's being a guy or a girl in this industry, and feeling like there's resistance, or it's your age, whether you feel like you're too old or you're too young. I might sound harsh, but I'm going to give some tough love to anyone listening to this and say, get over yourself, stop it, get out of your own way. Like that is not something that should be holding you back. Whether you're 50 years old and thinking you want to start your own photography business, like you could kick butt. There's going to be such a market for you out there because there aren't that many 50-year-olds out there doing photography in today's day and age that aren't like the old school photographers out there. And when it comes to like being young, like you have so much energy and so much like flexibility in that season of life. And you might have to learn some things the hard way, but like you're going to be able to do it. Like your age does not determine your capability in this industry. So I don't know if that like fully answered your question, Adam, but that's kind of like my spiel on that.
No, it's good. I loved it. I mean, it's one of those things too where you even reference like the haters being like, who do you think you are? But I mean, the reality is like, just go for it and try. And, if somebody really was like, wanted to, at least this is my thing that I tell people. I'm always like, hey, like, feel free to come over. We can grab coffee. I will show you my numbers and how well I'm doing. And not my Instagram number. I will show you my bank account and, or whatever. And it's like, also too, the way I look at how you do things, even if you weren't an educator, like, there's also permission. It's not even permission, right? It's none of my business. But like, I'm like, oh yeah, like Evie is running her business. She's doing her thing, like young, single lady, low overhead other than that furniture that you just bought, and like, I think enough too to like try to get your clients to pay as much of your travel as you possibly can, if not all of it, and have fun and like don't go into debt. And like you were like, your situation, not everybody's situation is the same. And I think people see the outside and then they think they know the inside. And it's like, no, like everybody's got a different story. And like, that's why we go into pricing, but that's a whole other thing. It's like, no, like Evie charges what she needs to charge for X, Y, and Z. And it's other people charge what they charge for a totally different reason.
Yeah, no, we could talk about pricing. I'm not gonna let myself go there, but yes, amen. Preach it.
Yeah. Well, Instagram Live, that could be fun. We'll hang out. I want to do more Instagram Lives with other people, just so it's like just something different than the podcast. But anyway, I lied. I have one last thing to ask you. And do you have an idea of what I'm about to ask you?
No, I have no idea. I'm nervous now.
So there's this YouTube video of you singing "Dear Future Husband" from 4 years ago. I will link it in the show notes, unless you pay $10,000. No, I'm just kidding. So I just want to ask about that. A certain Lindsay Roman texted it to me because I asked for any.
Texted to you now?
Yeah. So I asked before, were there any embarrassing stories or anything like that? Because I knew that our episode would be kind of serious, and so I was like, well, I want to see what's up. So.
Adam, you suck.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the channel is like 5'12" or something like that. It's really funny.
Oh my awesome. Gosh. Okay, you want to know the story behind that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I love Megan Trainor, so I mean, that's totally fun.
Gosh dang. Okay. Well, that was years ago. I think that was at least 4 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I am young in that. I was hanging out with one of my good friends, Ben Hawes, And he is like a photographer, videographer. He's actually the same photographer that I first saw do photography and fell in love. So he's
so you're already influenced, and he was like, listen, I love this Meghan Trainor song.
he's a great like old like childhood friend. Basically grew up with him, and he does like videography and stuff too. And he knew that I was like doing some music stuff, and like I loved playing music, and so he wanted to record like a music video of me like playing Ed Sheeran Icy Fire, and so we like set up this whole thing and basically just recorded this whole music video, which you can unfortunately also see on YouTube, and we recorded that, and then while like we had finished like wrapped like filming of the actual like cover, and we were sitting there, and I think I pulled out my phone and was like, oh my gosh, have you guys heard this brand new Meghan Trainor song? And I was like, it's great. And I pressed play, and then I started like just jamming, and Ben pulled out his camera and started freaking filming. And I just like kept going because, as I said, I'm a total ham. And I was like, I just was jamming, and it is the most painful thing for me to look back on. Like, I really don't have very many things that I'm embarrassed by, but for some reason that video, I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy on my soul. So it's pathetic. It's really bad. It's baby Evie. Like, if you think my Instagram dance videos are bad now, like you probably should go watch this, because it's so like, it's gnarly. It's rough.
Pretty awesome. I'm watching it with no audio right now, and it's very, it helps pull in your personality for this episode. So I love it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have not changed. I've literally, who I am now and who I am on my social media and who I am in that video is literally been the same since I was born. Like, I am the same person. I have not changed at all. Always down to be in the spotlight, not afraid if I look like an absolute goofball, like ridiculous.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, hey, other than that YouTube video, which we will, and I promise, link in the show notes of this episode. I mean, it's another chance for people to get to know you and love you. And if you have a deep dive, you can go and find my weird YouTube stuff. Everybody's got it. I feel like our generation. Where else can people go to find you? We've talked a lot about Instagram, and where can they say hi? And you know, what do you have got coming up? We didn't even talk about the Heart University and the Heart Workshop, but just tell us all the things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for my business education and training and things like that, as Adam just stated, you can find me at theheartuniversity.com. We have our in-person workshops. We have the online course. We have all sorts of different resources and things on there. We're actually about to launch our brand new website today, which is exciting. And then for me personally, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Evie Rupp. And then my website is evelyngracephotos.com.
Awesome. Well, one last question. I know you're getting your own new website. Are you still going to be Evelyn Grace Photo, or are you going to change it up?
I'm actually going to change it up, but we are trying. I've been going through a rough battle trying to get the URL I need from another person. Because I'm switching my brand. I'm rebranding, and I'm going to be just Evelyn Grace. And I'm taking the photos out of my name. And somebody has evelyngrace.com, and it redirects to a completely different website. So she's not even like using my freaking domain. So I've called her. I've had my assistant call her. I've emailed her like twice. I'm having my designer call her. But I think for now, I'm still going to have Evelyn Grace Photos, and it's going to probably redirect to my other URL. It'll probably be evelyn-grace.com. I don't know. But yeah.
That is crazy. So funny story, and we'll keep this on just because it's really funny. I don't own, so my website, the first one I started was just myname.com, and I was like, okay, cool. So I have the opposite problem of you, and I wanted to make my brand, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, let's get masonphotography.com. Well, turns out this like 60, 70-year-old DJ, retired from Missouri, owns masonphotography.com. I offered him money. Like, I emailed them. You can find through some magical who is and stuff like that. You can find out who it is. And I emailed them, and I was like, listen, I am so pumped, and this is so cool. I was like, I did it really nice. I was like, I'm so proud of what you've done in Missouri for the wedding industry and for the DJs of the world. And I love your sparkly lights on your website. But I was like, I would love to help carry on the Mason name. And if I could get that domain, dog. And you know, they said, no, we're just going to keep it in the family, as if it was like an urn or something, or like somebody's ashes. And I was just like, oh, why?
That's so rough.
Yeah, but it's such a weird thing because, you know, like you have your older social media handles. Like I'm not sure if you've always been Evie Rupp, but like I used to do when I was started to my Twitter and stuff like that. I was Adam inspired, and so like that's my personal account for everything. And then but I never was like, oh, I should get Adam Mason in everything just in case. So like Instagram and Twitter, I don't have Adam Mason. So I'm like, like nothing is uniform, and it kills me. Like I would never feel comfortable teaching a branding class just because guys, none of it lines up, y'all. I'm sorry. Like it's not going to work out.
Oh yeah, that's rough. My Instagram has like when I created it, I just created Evie Rupp. But when I started my photography business, I knew like at some point I was going to get married and like my last name was going to change. And so I branded everything with Evelyn Grace. But somebody literally like no followers or maybe like 30 followers, has never posted anything, has not been active since like 2014 or something like that, has my handle at Evelyn Grace. And I've like talked to Instagram to try to get that. I've DM'd the person to try to get that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just gave up.
It's basically impossible. It's awful. And I mean, I've even tried to like trademark my first and last name. And then Instagram's like, well, we don't really care about trademarks. I'm just like,
I know. What? I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. I'm just like,
they were like, nope.
Like, guys, how is it supposed to work? What do we need to do? Give me their address. I will find them. I will go full Liam Neeson. That's hilarious. Oh, well, one, two, I mean, like Caitlin James is still Caitlin James, even though her real last name isn't James. So,
that's true.
So you can just stick with Evie Rupp, and you know the right guy will be down with you keeping it. So I mean, that's like you can just put that in your dating profile. Just be like, listen, y'all, keeping my last name when it comes to biz, not real life, unless you're into that.
I love it. The fact that you think I would have a dating profile.
Listen, Evie, I know. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. But no, it's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful to chat with you. And I would encourage everybody to, 1, watch the YouTube video, 2, go say hi on Instagram, and 3, check out all the education at the Heart University and the Heart Workshop. You're such an encouragement to the community, and I'm so thankful you came on. Thanks so much, Evie.
Thanks, Adam.
Obviously, Evie is really, really cool, and hopefully you got from that episode a lot. I wanted to kind of just dive in, and I think the things that I like about Evie and the things that I've seen in her work and how she runs her business is kind of that balance of, 1, just the being authentic and being yourself and making it happen. Like, we didn't ask about destination wedding photography. We didn't talk about pricing. We didn't talk about gear or anything like that. But she's just really good at encouraging people to be themselves, and she does that by also showing herself. And then at the same time too, just kind of like walking through how other people think about Instagram and what are their boundaries, guidelines, etc., and how they do that. So great having her on. I would definitely encourage you to go watch that video. Tell her you watched that video. It's in the show notes. Or you can go to adammason.com/podcast and go find Evie's episode and say hi. Lastly, we have lots of information going up on Patreon. If you're not joined and want to support the podcast in a small and easy way while getting lots of information to help you run your business, you can join the Patreon. Link is in the show notes, or just go to patreon.com/thebeardedtog. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Keep being awesome.